It's Wednesday, July 2nd, the day after Canada Day. I'm Jim Check with Now Media. With me, Ian Burns, our managing editor out there in the nation's capital. Lots to talk about, and we're about 7 minutes late. But we had a little bit of technical difficulties this morning. The big headlines, Carney addresses Canada. The tax cut is dull at best. CTV says Carney gets mini win on DST. First LNG leaves BC port, and that's on its way to Asia, awaiting confirmation of a 60-day ceasefire in Gaza. And Vietnam gets a trade deal with Trump. All that and a lot more on the really big show. Lots to talk about today, but we're going to kick it off first with the big Canada Day celebrations there that drew thousands. And Carney made a speech that some people are wondering what he was trying to say. Some of the words he was saying is that our values are being tested by attacks on democracy and freedoms, attacks we must resist. Not sure what values are being attacked. Any thoughts on that there, Ian?
It is an odd one, isn't it? Democracy and freedoms. I think I'm almost inclined to say that he didn't think about this, or the person that wrote this for him didn't think about it. I think that I'm inclined to just take this as completely meaningless. I think it's the other thing that he meant, which is our economy is being attacked by a trade war we didn't start.
Well, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. But the other stuff, democracy and our values are being attacked. I don't know. And then, but
the strangest thing of all is the people who are most likely to express those feelings that our freedoms are under attack are critics of the Liberal Party, because it's the Liberal Party that is accused most often of overreach and of, behaviour bordering on authoritarianism. And we'll look at that later when we look at that that opinion article that the CBC published. It's not, that sort of language is not usually directed at any other party, really, is it? It's something that is deemed to be a problem with the Liberals.
And you would have thought it would be more of a day of celebration. And then, the King's brother, Edward, was there, and he said today is truly a celebration of you, your home, your land, you're strong and free. That would have been a more suitable speech for Canada Day instead of this, it seems like it was campaign trail rhetoric.
Also, funny thing to say, though, I mean, quite a bizarre thing that to be controversial, but I suppose we have to acknowledge that is kind of controversial to say your land. We now live in an era in this country's history where that is being questioned by many people and groups who seem to have this bizarre view that we're living on Turtle Island and this is all stolen land and we're all settlers and all the rest of it.
So that's
like the land is being questioned, that part. And I think Edward, he said this because he's not familiar with the kind of land acknowledgement culture and all the rest of it and the direction that it's taking in this country.
If the government officials that say that stuff say that, are they also saying that the government's not legitimate and CRA is not legitimate and should you be paying taxes?
Well, the people it's directed at don't pay taxes, I suppose. But no, I think you're right though to question that, because the problem is if you look around in academic circles, people trying to or serious people, not just academics, people who are trying to diagnose the crises that we face here in the West, it often boils down to one thing, which is a legitimacy crisis. That's what, in Europe, when you see things going on in places like France, England, obviously, and even here and in the US, it's January 6th and all the rest of it, it all comes back to this idea of legitimacy. And isn't it peculiar that in this country, which also faces these same problems, the governing class seems to want to pour gasoline on that fire of a legitimacy crisis and say exactly what you said, come out and with this garbage about genocide and stolen land and land acknowledgements and all the rest of it, unceded territory and whatnot. When you are facing a legitimacy crisis, the last thing you want to do is say, oh yeah, and we stole this land anyway, so this whole thing's a load of bollocks. Like, you might as well not pay your taxes because we stole this land, apparently. And I honestly think it's a lack of intelligence and it's a lack of intellectual ambition on their part, that they haven't tried to think of a way to solve this problem and to move away from this bizarre idea that this land is stolen, which is completely false. Anybody with the even a sort of moderate understanding of history knows that that's garbage. But it prevails as an idea among the sort of half-educated members of the population. If you were really bold, and I've said this a few times about Carney and other people in government, if they were really bold and ambitious, they would tackle that head on, and they would come up with a new narrative and a new message to kind of heal those wounds. But alas, it takes King Edward to state the obvious. King Edward? Sorry. He's not a king. Prince Edward.
King's brother Edward. There you go.
Yeah, King's brother.
Mark Carney also put out a tweet there yesterday that tomorrow on Canada Day, I mean, that's from yesterday, your middle class tax cut takes effect, saving you money. And then I went back and played the $868 or 800 and some odd dollars that you're supposed to get for a family. And turns out when we did that, the PBO said it's going to be a lot less.
But apparently he's content, Carney, and the rest of the Liberals are content just to completely contradict the PBO. Again, talk about legitimacy, faith in institutions. What's the point of a public budget officer if the parties just ignore them and repeat their own facts instead? Again, it's like, nice one, Liberals, well done.
And then this is the big one. This is one that I think a lot of people are waiting to talk about, is the DST. The Americans originally asking for a 30-day pause on that tax. And Francois Philippe Champagne and Mark Carney's government said no. And then so Trump said the negotiations are off. And then they got rid of it entirely. And then, CTV put out an article and called it a mini win for Canada as DST dropped. Like what? Like how do you like pose that as a win? They were just asking for a 30-day pause. You said no. They called off trade talks, and then you dropped it all together, and then you call that a win.
But I mean, the thing that isn't really being mentioned, maybe if this all happened behind the scenes, and then we learned about it in an article with anonymous sources or something like that, maybe we say, oh, okay, cool. They were negotiating, they were playing hardball, but that isn't what happened. We have to bear in mind what actually happened. Donald Trump came out and said, screw you, game over, I'm not playing anymore. And then Mark Carney, a day later, or whatever it was, 2 days later, bottled it, as they say, across the Atlantic, and said, oh, okay, and just completely surrendered. That's the context here. This isn't some conversation that happened at the G7 summit or something like that. This is something that happened in public. And it was basically, you see this in human interactions. It was basically a challenge was issued. Let's say Carney issued a challenge in a sense. He said, I'm going to hold on to this thing that you don't like over there, mister. And then the big guy came over and just said, but in effect said, do you want to say that again? And then Carney's gone, no, sir, no. So how does that look? How does that look to not just in this country or in the US, but how does that look to the world? They're looking and saying, okay, so he's going to back down. And in a sense, Trump has just shown that he's boss, he's master. He is master of this land, and he's made that very, very clear. And I think to describe that as a win, I just think it's completely deluded. Obviously, It's not a win. Trump now knows as well, by the way, that he can just win. He can just win by doing that. All he has to do is send out a stupid tweet, and the Canadian government will bend over backwards and do whatever his lordship commands. Obviously, it's not a win, is it?
So some of the reporters were asking questions on it after acknowledging Canada gained nothing in exchange for promising to repeal its 3.7. Usually in a negotiation, if you're a negotiator, you give something up, you get something, and then they learn they got nothing. And like Mark Carney's answer, there's more to do, as he walked away from questioning over his abrupt suspension of the DST. It doesn't make sense to collect tax from people and remit them back, said Carney. So it provides some certainty. And then they asked, did you get anything for exchange? And it's part of a bigger negotiation, replied Carney. It is something we expected. There's more to do. We'll keep you updated. And I watched a bit of his speech there, too. He said, you forgive me if I take the rest of the day off here because it's Canada Day. And I would have said, well, aren't you taking the whole summer off?
Yeah, that's the more important question, isn't it? But also, as usual with Mark Carney, it's just non sequiturs. Him and everyone associated with his government, it's non sequiturs. I know I say that a lot. Non sequitur just means that it doesn't follow. That's literally what it means. It's a Latin term for anybody that, I mean, I assume most people know what that means, but it never follows. It's never direct. He's asked a question and he gives a different answer every single time. If he even gives an answer at all in our language that we speak, usually that's the case, that he just waffles out a load of words that don't belong in the same sentence. But I just think he's not the best communicator that we've ever had, is he? He's like kind of opposite to Trudeau in the way that he doesn't speak at length. Trudeau would speak for ages, wouldn't he, in a situation like this? But he keeps it sort of short, but it doesn't really make any sense to me. And also this idea, by the way, that like you just said there, like, oh, you got nothing back. What I keep being told by his defenders in the CBC and obviously CTV there is that really the great prize for the Liberals is supply management. And that's what they want to protect at all costs. And CBC was talking about that. I was listening today to some analyst that they brought on, one of their reporters, who was talking about supply management. It's just like this. There's no question about it. Supply management is absolutely superb. It's almost as if like he's talking about some industry that we have that generates like $300 billion a year for us or something like that, rather than what it is, some sort of non-free market appeasement of Quebec so that they don't try and separate.
Well, a new Democrat leader, Don Davies, there is trying to stay relevant, taunted the Prime Minister over his reversal on the DSC, rescinding the digital services tax as pure caving to Trump and his billionaire friends. Canada is a sovereign country with the right to make our own taxes, said Davies. Abandoning the taxation of tech giants is unacceptable appeasement. To be fair, the Biden administration went hard at this government over the same DST. This is not very popular with Republicans and Democrats in the United States, and it was going to be challenged for sure.
Well, even, I suppose we might as well call him the sainted Barack Obama. Even he was against it, because the Europeans pioneered this idea, didn't they? And Barack Obama, I recall, was really hot against this. I think even Hillary Clinton was, and it's not because of principles or whatever. It's because American politics is completely corrupt, and the government, the companies that will be charged have loads of money, and they've corrupted the American political system. It's not a fight you can win. They have these organizations like Meta, Google, and all the rest of it. They are more sophisticated and have more resources than the federal government of Canada. You can't win a fight with them. Don't bother. Don't even start. If they want something, give it to them. Basically, that's the lesson I think we've learned over the last sort of 10 years. And this is just like Bill C-18, another very stupid example, or another example of very stupid behavior from the Liberal Party, thinking that they can take on the tech giants in the US. You can't do that. You can't do that and win anyway. And this is what happens. You get humiliated.
Yeah, and then the headlines in the world, the international headlines, not as favorable as CTV and CBC. This is from the Telegraph, the UK news website. Weak Carney betrays Canadian electorate on the only thing that put him in the office. And Canada's PM has already folded by abandoning his plan to impose the DST to appease Donald Trump.
The only thing unfortunately, that my former compatriots in England there, something that they don't understand about this country, and I assume this was written by, well, this headline at least will have been written by a news editor in the London office there. What they don't understand is that it's not like England. If this happened in England, the press would eat the Prime Minister alive. It would be going on now, today. It would be every single front page, every headline would be about spineless Carney and how he's backed down against Trump and all the rest of it. But what the English don't understand is that doesn't happen here in Canada. Instead, you go on the main news websites and it's mini win for Mark Carney. It's this parallel universe where the leader of the Liberal Party and the Prime Minister is basically always right, can't do any wrong, rather than the obvious fact that's in front of our eyes and the eyes of these English news editors here, which is that Carney is back down, even though he promised to go toe-to-toe with Donald Trump.
Yeah, some of the U.S. outlets definitely echoing the Telegraph there, including Fox. So they're actually making fun of it. And yeah, our mini win, that's like such a stretch. And again, to recognize 35% of the salaries of those reporters are being paid by, not that, I shouldn't say the federal government, the Liberals, because the Poilievre's government would have taken it away. But
I feel like it's more than that, though. I know I've mentioned this a lot of times, but I think it's more than that. If it was a Tory government that had done this, the 35% subsidy, I think they'd still be railing against the Tories, and they would make it an issue.
Yeah.
They would sort of like threaten. They would say, "Oh, we know there's a chance we're going to get our subsidy removed, but we don't care because we're like warriors for the truth," or something like that. It's not just about the subsidy, although that is to a certain extent, I think, a quid pro quo. It's more, as I see it, that they are generally sympathetic because the people, it's a white collar job now. It's a middle class sort of, university master's degree job now, journalism by and large. And those people, almost to a man and a woman, support the Liberal Party of Canada and what it stands for. I think it's more just a natural sympathy that they have. They see the world, the Liberal Party and most journalists see the world in the same way. It's almost like even if they're not consciously biased, they're still biased.
Yeah, the food professor who we follow put it out there that what you said earlier, basically the line there is nobody can stand up to 25% of the world's economy. I mean, they do have the hammer. I mean, they're more important to us than they are the other way around. Like what we get from them is way more important than what they give to us. However, I'm trying to say that.
Yeah, but
we're
I would
not
still
that significant
say
to them, but they're very significant to us.
Yeah, but I would still say Trump. It's an imbalance. It's an imbalanced relationship. Obviously, everything about the relationship's not balanced in every single way, except the only way is geographical size. That's the one thing that we have by a time, like a smidgen, we have it. But whatever. But yeah, I would also add to that though that Trump tries to, even recently, where he's like, when he cancelled when he said he was going to cancel the trade talks, he was like, maybe they'll come back. I don't care. I don't care. He does that. He adopts that like we don't care sort of attitude. That is complete theater. That's completely phony. The Americans absolutely care about trade with Canada. It represents, of all the trade they do around the world, trade with Canada represents an enormous proportion of that, like totally disproportionate to the size of Canada's population. So it is of massive importance to the Americans. And even on if you want to look down at specific things that we give them, like obviously uranium and oil and natural gas and fertilizer and things like that, they can't mess around either. So it's not like they can just ignore Carney's calls or something like that. I think that would be crazy. But there's definitely, nonetheless, it's more important to us overall.
And there's a little, Brian Lilly put out this tweet here, and this is from the briefing room here, a little clip here from the White House briefing room.
What's the president's reaction to this? Can you tell us more about his call with Prime Minister Carney over the weekend? How did he get Carney to drop it? And also, what's the impact on American tech companies given this latest progress as the president says he has been fighting for American tech companies?
It's very simple. Prime Minister Carney in Canada caved to President Trump in the United States of America. And President Trump knows how to negotiate, and he knows that he is governing the best country and the best economy in this world, on this planet. And every country on the planet needs to have good trade relationships with the United States. And it was a mistake for Canada to vow to implement that tax. That would have hurt our tech companies here in the United States. The president made his position quite clear to the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister called the president last night to let the president know that he would be dropping that tax, which is a big victory for our tech companies and our American workers here at home.
There you go. And then there's some reaction here. There's some questions here. We got a little CPAC clip here from Mark Carney here.
Did you get anything in exchange for?
We have, to be clear, it's part of a bigger negotiation. It's something that we expected in the broader sense that would be part of a final deal. We're making progress towards a final deal. There's more to be done, to be clear. And as I just said, which answers the translation question, as I just said, is a question of timing in terms of the date for the final negotiations and when the tax was coming into effect. And it doesn't make sense to collect tax from people and then remit them back. So it provides some certainty And as I just said, negotiations have restarted. We're going to focus on getting the best deal for Canadians. We're making progress. There's more to do, and we'll keep you updated.
To be clear, how many times do you say that? You know, it's not much of a negotiation if you get nothing back. And here's Pierre Poilievre said that. Like, why didn't you ask for the tariffs to come off the softwood lumber lease? Get something back. You got nothing.
Well, yeah. Though I must say I didn't hear an awful lot from Pierre Poilievre about this tax before now.
Yeah.
So, and I also would like an explanation from Pierre Poilievre, who calls himself a libertarian and a real like hardcore believer in the free market, like the real sort of Chicago school style, the real deal. I'd like an explanation from him how it's possible for him to be that person, believe in all that stuff, and still be a supporter of supply management. How does that work, Pierre? It's almost as if it's mere politics, and he's not actually dealing in principles on these matters. Yeah,
Robert Urbach from the Globe and Mail said that DST was bad policy. And lots of people said that it was actually going to cost Canadians that billions of dollars, not the tech companies. But she said it makes us look terribly weak, just caving in on it. Then we were going to do that clip here from CBC, but we're going to leave that. We're going to jump ahead to the historic monument. The first LNG Canadian shipment departs the BC port for Asia. That's a long time coming. A tanker carrying the first liquefied natural gas to lead Canadian shores is sailing across the Pacific, and that's a major milestone for a country looking to diversify its exports for oil and gas beyond the U.S. There you go.
It's a big deal. I mean, it's chicken feed, isn't it, in the grand scheme of things, and it's 10 years late, but I suppose it's better than nothing.
Yeah, and from somebody that said that LNG is not, there's no business case for it. So yeah, so they are moving ahead with that. And, it was a good thing to announce on Canada Day for sure, to show that there was some energy being sold to other parts of the world. The U.S. is now the leading supplier of LNG around the world. Kind of an opportunity that we kind of missed again.
Indeed.
There you go. And then this is, they were giving out those orders of Canada. We talked about it on Monday. There was an order of Canada for Theresa Tam and one for Dr. Bonnie Henry. And then another one related to COVID. The Deputy Health Minister, rebuked by MPs for distributing date-expired pandemic vaccines, made the honors list there. In Rideau Hall, Stephen Lucas, now retired North Vancouver, was awarded the Order of Canada for his leadership as Deputy Minister of Health during the COVID-19 pandemic. So, orders of Canada all around for making Canadians take expired vaccine to top it off, right? And
these are the sort of stories that they tell themselves, then, are they now? I mean, I would imagine that even a defender of the Liberal Party would acknowledge that huge amounts of mistakes were made during COVID, that it was in many ways a sort of public health policy disaster, which is true. It was in so many ways. I don't know how they could celebrate that, to be honest, but I just think it's a default now, isn't it? It's just you don't have to succeed. Just look at who is in charge of finance. Look at who's in charge of foreign affairs. Look at who's in charge of industry, innovation, and whatever it is, that department. These people aren't successful. They don't have great victories that they can point to. But it just seems like as long as you keep your head down and say the right things and stay loyal, you'll get rewarded, won't you?
Even if you look past that changed expiry date, and that's the one. One of the little grocers got in trouble here in Kelowna for doing that, for changing it on food products. But he changed it, and he still got the Order of Canada. But even past that, they wasted about $1.2 billion on COVID shots that were never used. And that was according to the public accounts tabled last December 17th. And that's the latest figure that was divulged. And imagine they could scratch a little deeper and find a bigger number as well.
God knows what remains to be found. I think that it's going to keep a certain class of people busy for decades, isn't it?
Maybe if you handle out the orders of Canada, then people won't look under the couch as much. But here's another one that's been repeatedly asked for. Repeated letters on Nazis. The Canadian Congress has sent repeated letters to federal managers over disclosure of a secret blacklist of suspected Nazi collaborators, Access Information records show. Cabinet continues to conceal the names of collaborators and suspected war criminals let into Canada after 1945. And part of that, they're saying, is they didn't really want to upset the offspring of these people.
Right? I mean, I can kind of understand that, because they're not guilty of anything, are they? Their kids aren't guilty of anything.
Right.
But I mean, whether that overrules the public interest and the rest of it, I don't know. Yeah, that's
but the government
question, ultimately
seemed inclined to punish you for stuff that your ancestors did.
Yeah, that's different though, isn't it? Because that's politically expedient.
Yeah, so I mean, they keep calling for this. Renewed calls for disclosure followed a public uproar over the Congress mistake in September 22nd, 2023, tribute to Yaroslav Hunka, a North Bay, Ontario volunteer from the 14th Waffen Grenadier Division of the SS. The division was named a criminal organization in the 1946 Nuremberg trials. That was Justin Trudeau's faux pas.
One of the most surreal moments, surely, in the history of Canada. And I'm not exaggerating there, I don't think. That they all turned around, vigorously applauded this guy. Surreal, absolutely bizarre.
It was the Liberals in the Bloc that blocked this proposal to expose that list.
I wonder why the Bloc was so keen.
Another chance at it. The NDP wanted that list shown. That was one time that that the NDP was actually asking for it. And then here, this is a tweet from the Senator Leo Huskas. Canada's immigration is a mess. It badly needs an overhaul and must return to being driven by economic considerations. Immigration needs to be win-win for Canada and the new Canadians that arrive here. And here, this is thousands of foreigners, criminal convictions forgiven by Ottawa over an 11-year span, raising transparency concerns. At the same time, Tamara Lich is not getting the same type of consideration, is she?
It's also just like, this is not the issue, is it? The issue isn't, this is kind of a specific problem with the immigration system. I would say the more general problem is that there are too many immigrants coming to Canada. I mean, just say it. But this is what he wouldn't say. This is what the senator wouldn't say. This is what Michelle Rempel-Garner wouldn't say. Although their leader, Pierre Poilievre, has said that very recently as well, has said that there, but not in such stark terms. The reality is that Canada's immigration system, growing up as I did in another country, in England, the sort of political discussion about this was that Britain, which has had a disastrous immigration policy for decades now, they would look to Canada and they'd say, look how bloody clever the Canadians are. Look how smart they are with their immigration and everything else, by the way. Look at their gigantic brains over there in Canada and how they get everything right. That was the reputation that Canada's immigration system had until 4 years ago, or 5 years ago. So that's the conversation that needs to be had. Why is Canada's immigration system, it's now a meme. I don't know if you've seen these memes. Canada's immigration system is literally a meme now. It's like a morality tale. It's like a look how bad it can be, and then they get the graph out and show how it surged in 2021, 2022. I mean, that's the problem I see. It's that the whole system needs to be burned to the ground and rebuilt, frankly, doesn't it?
Yeah, I agreed. And I'm just going to lose power here, so we're just trying to fix a bit of a disaster that might happen. So
whoever organized the studio today probably also created Canada's immigration policy, I would say.
There you go. And then we have this Canada. This is Brian Lilly put this out. Canadians welcome Bob Vila's criticism of genocidal Israeli military. This is I watched this, a clip of this concert there. They were screaming "Death to the IDF" and
death to the IDF.
And people were
Musical,
chanting and jumping up and down for it too. Like they were.
This is what I was on about on Friday. I was talking about this. This is a place called Glastonbury, which is that's where your hero is said to be buried, I believe, King Arthur. And it's a place where lots of, middle class, sort of well off, moderately posh people in England, they go there. It's in Somerset, like a really rural part of England. They go there and they camp out for a couple of nights and they watch all of these left-wing agitprop psychopaths like come out with absolute garbage, and people like Jeremy Corbyn appear and spew out some sort of hatred of Israel or something like that. But this guy, I don't even know how to pronounce his name. I'm guessing that what he's trying to have there, what he's trying to make it is Bob Villain. But the way that he's written it, obviously he doesn't speak English very well. It would be read as Bob Violent, but I doubt that's what he's going for. Anyway, yeah, he chanted death to the IDF. He also said, "I heard you want your country back." And then some swear words after that, as in you're not getting it, basically, to put it in a friendly way. And he's in the past as well. He's, people have dug up a lot of his videos, and he's expressed a certain kind of anti-white racism, I suppose you'd say, anti-English racism, even though he is born in England. He's just, he's a pretty typical sort of low originality, low brain power, left-wing extremist that we should all familiar with at this point, I think.
Mainly a bunch of white kids that were basically chanting for their own demise.
Yeah, and he is half white himself. I think his mother is white, or one of his parents is white anyway. But he's, for some reason, got a kind of animus, an ethnic animus towards whitey, and also Jews, which I feel, or Israel, let's say, let's be nice. And I feel like they're two sides of the same coin. A lot of people who hate Israel always also have this kind of strange ethnic feud with white people or European people, European origin people. Very, very odd, but it's kind of, this is not new. These aren't new, these people. This has been going for decades now. I mean, it probably traces back to the 1960s. But it's just the same old, it's like the toxic left, isn't it? We all know what the toxic right looks like, with various sort of Nazi slogans and racism and all that sort of thing. But a lot of people don't quite realize what they're looking at here. But what you're looking at is the left. The left goes wrong, just like the right does, and that's what it looks like. It's very unsavory.
And we're going to get into our Bill C-18 section here. CBC wants a closed hearing. The CBC had lost the court application to block rival reporters from covering a hearing involving misconduct by one of its own managers. Why would they want that to be a private hearing? The application marked a reversal of CBC's long-standing campaign for open court proceedings. They should have put proviso in there, except when it's about us.
It's almost like, this is Black Logs, isn't it? It's almost like this was just created for Black Logs. It's like perfect for them to come out and expose a bit of hypocrisy. But yeah, I mean, it's exactly what you say. It's, transparency for thee, but not for me.
Yeah, and this is all about a producer at CBC engaged in harassment, and he was suspended without pay for a month. So this is going to be an open hearing, and we'll get to learn more.
And it's, what do they call that again? The Streisand effect, isn't it? Where it's like, people wouldn't really have been as bothered about this if they hadn't drawn attention to it by trying to get it blocked.
And the CBC believed the order was necessary to protect witnesses, their privacy, and their professional reputations, to encourage whistleblowing, and to ensure the integrity of mechanisms for preventing workplace harassment and address the confidentiality given by the CBC to participate in this investigation. CBC would be screaming if it was someone, like you said, on the right that was doing it, but then, of course, if it's about them, then... And that's the part of it. Transparency is not really what you got to see there. I mean, the same thing goes with when they got that increased funding from the Carney's Liberals. First thing they did was gave themselves, the executive, a raise, not the reporters. They gave the executive a raise and said there'd be no bonuses because Canadians don't like the bonuses, so they just tack the bonuses onto their salaries.
Yeah, don't like
Fixed.
that word, bonus. So
Hey,
just
fixed.
just make it
Fixed.
salary.
Fixed. And that way you don't have
But
to
it
beg
is
for your
interesting
bonus
what you
either.
say there. Imagine if this was about what's his name, Ezra, Ezra, what's he called? Ezra Levant. Yeah, that's his
Yeah.
name, isn't it? From Rebel. Imagine
Yeah.
if it was him. He'd been slapping someone around or whatever this is. Can you imagine the CBC? They would be
ropes.
furious.
They would have had ropes out there, right? They would have been screaming to make this to throw the anyway. And
Good
another
old
one.
CBC.
This is from the Financial Post, an opinion piece here. Matthew Lowe wrote it. CBC is very balancing reporting of just one point of view, and this is about climate change. Yeah, so if you're looking for a solid analysis, balanced reporting on climate change and climate policy, you're unlikely to get it from CBC News. And this is a story last week on Ontario's climate targets, internal documents from the Public Service Project. Ontario's greenhouse gas emissions will be around 145 megatons in 2030, depending on the industry actions and other factors. If the projection holds, the province would miss the target to reduce emissions by 142 megatons. The Environment Minister, appearing to contradict these predictions, said on June 5th that the Progressive Conservatives government plan is working and the province was in fact on track to hit the targets. But anyway.
I think it's the subhead there that's the key, isn't it? Where it says, a story on Ontario missing its 2030 emissions targets presents it as tragic for the planet, when in fact the planet will hardly notice. Yeah. You could replace the word Ontario with Canada there as well, which is the point. The point isn't that there's no real debate about is the climate changing. Yes, it is. I mean, come on, it is, for sure it is. The data is irresistible at this point. The climate is changing. The question is, what are we going to do about it? And the problem is that a lot of people want to come out and say the climate's changing, the world's going to end, therefore carbon tax. No, it's completely legitimate to say that that's a stupid response. And that's what it all boils down to. And stories like this, and I'm sorry to say the CBC in general, they do misrepresent this all the time. And it's dreadful. It's an embarrassment.
And this one here, I did see another. I think it was a Globe and Mail. There was an opinion piece from that we get our flag back, and which is puzzling. Where did it go? Who took it?
And that was I believe that was the head of the Department of History at the University of Guelph, a professor who said that the right had taken away, or the far right had taken away the flag. Head of history. Do you know? Yeah. Usually in the past, I know maybe I'm out of date. In the past, the head of history at a university would have to like carry his head around in a wheelbarrow because he would be so much of a gigantic genius. And then instead, now we have people capable of saying things like that. Just
and this guy
foolishness.
This guy is saying that he can't forget the BC man is struggling on Canada Day after being horrified by the response to the Ottawa trucker protest. The CBC had published a column written by a BC man who feels betrayed and alienated by Canada because of the Liberal government's response to the Ottawa trucker protest in 2022. Gord Larson, who now lives in Calgary, said he was horrified by the government's response, which he described as naked authoritarianism. I even had an argument with one of our reporters here during that time of the truckers, because we covered some of the truckers, that Okanagan truckers there, and he was stating that he was really angry that they had taken away his flag. And I said, "What do you mean they've taken away your flag?" And he said, "Well, they took my flag." And I'm just like, "Your flag? I mean, if you go to like someplace to buy a flag, that's your flag. And if he went somewhere to buy a flag, that's his flag. But the flag belongs to all Canadians. It's not yours or his or anything, but the one that you personally hold in your hands would be yours, right? That you went to the store and bought." And I tried to explain to him that you don't own the flag. Nobody owns the flag. And this is what this guy's trying to say, is that they got it back. Got it back from who? It belongs to all Canadians, even if you don't agree with their opinions and thoughts. That's the point of Canada.
But also, let's go back to the start, where Mark Carney was on about how our values are under attack, democracy and freedom. In a democratic society that's free, you can have different opinions about your country, values, and you can have different opinions generally, but you all still hold the same flag. That's kind of the point.
Yeah. The point is, like that article was just ridiculous because he got the flag back from who, and who decided that it's your flag? Again, if you want a flag of your own, go to the store and buy one. order it online, do whatever you want to do. That's your flag.
And I would say as well, like the worst damage to the flag that's been done in my experience, certainly since I've been here in Canada, but I would say in my lifetime, is Justin Trudeau's reaction to the Kamloops grave sites, which still haven't been actually investigated properly. But when he started to talk about the evils of Canada and kept the flag down at half mast for whatever it was, 6 months, that's like the most damage I've seen almost any country do to its own flag, its own symbol, and that was very much from the left, not from the right.
The comment that he made too, that Canada is a post-nationalist state, is also very damning. That one in itself, I think, is one of the most damning statements made by a prime minister, that Canada is a post-nationalist state. And then when they needed to win an election, all of a sudden it was a nationalist state that you needed to wrap yourself around with the flag around yourself, with elbows up and all that stuff. That's the part that I have a tough time with. But again, just for people that are confused, it's not the university professor's flag, nor is it your flag. It's everybody's flag. And even if you got the opinions of each other don't agree, that is the point of a free country. The flag belongs to everybody, other than the one that you bought. That one can be yours, and you can stick it on your truck, and you can put it in front of your house. You can wrap it around yourself, do whatever you want with it.
You can set it on fire.
And apparently you're not supposed to alter the flag, but certain groups are allowed to alter the flag.
But this one, anyway, we're talking about something else here, because this is a CBC column. Yeah. And credit to the CBC for actually going ahead with this. I'm certain that there'll be people in the newsroom that were upset about this. Absolutely certain. I'd bet my life savings on it that there'll have been people saying, should we publish this? But good on them for doing it. Whoever made that decision, whichever CBC editor made that decision, well done. I think just by doing that, you've helped restore a little bit of trust in the national broadcaster. And straight away, when I was on there earlier, I'm sure it's still the case, it was the top read article. So obviously, like, there are a lot of other people looking at that and saying, wow, the CBC's actually put another, and yeah, it is, it's still up there. The CBC has actually put another perspective across for the first time in God knows how long. But I mean, the sad thing, if you want to talk about why it's disappointing, is that this is an opinion article, so it's not like the CBC has gone into this and had a look themselves. But whatever, at least they published it.
I mean, what I just said. It just seems like common sense. Like the flag, like that professor that writes that, they got his flag back. It's just ridiculous, and it's just those are the people that are a threat to democracy by saying the other people don't have a right to the flag. That's the ridiculous part. And we're going to move on to some of the international stuff, though. We're going to play this clip first, then we'll talk about it.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Matthew Gagliotti, and I'm the head of the Justice Department's Criminal Division. Thank you all for joining us today as we announce the largest coordinated healthcare fraud takedown in the history of the Department of Justice. Today marks a decisive moment in our fight to protect American taxpayers from fraudsters and to defend the integrity of America's healthcare system. We are announcing today charges against 324 defendants for their alleged participation in healthcare fraud schemes involving approximately $14.6 billion in false claims submitted to Medicare, Medicaid, and other healthcare programs.
There you go, and that then includes 96 doctors, nurse practitioners, pharmacists, and other licensed medical professionals in 50 federal districts and 12 state attorney general's offices across the United States for the alleged participation in this healthcare fraud. Healthcare, big business in the United States. Big, big, big business. Probably one of the biggest
Massive.
business. Yeah, big business.
I mean, next to defense, or probably legal fees. That's probably the biggest one.
Like Meta and those guys are just like playing minor leagues when you talk about lobbyists for healthcare and pharmaceuticals and stuff like that, and the defense guys, and then the pharmaceutical guys. I mean, those are massive. And then the food and drug one, like that's massive.
Pharmaceuticals are just off the leash, aren't they? They're completely free to do whatever the hell they want, it seems.
And then we got breaking news this morning that Sean Combs, P. Diddy, has been found not guilty of racketeering and sex trafficking, guilty on 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution, but not guilty on, like the major charges there in his court case.
Could still get 10 years though, potentially. So I mean, he's 55, I think. So that's not a small sentence.
It'll be interesting to see what the actual sentence will be, right? And then this is really big news, and we didn't put it in the headline because it came in last, and it was Trump has said a representative had a long and productive meeting with the Israelis today on Gaza. Israel has agreed to the necessary conditions to finalize that 60-day ceasefire, during which time we'll work with all parties to end that war. The Qataris and Egyptians, who have worked very hard to help bring peace, will deliver this final proposal, and I hope for the good of the Middle East. Hamas must take the deal. It will not get any better. And they said that when Iran, according, like if you look at it from Mark Carney's world, Iran won the war. When after Iran won the war, according to the Ayatollah, that the money would dry up for Hamas and that the ceasefire would come. And Trump actually pushed really hard and said that you got to end that war in Gaza as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think Iran has been kind of dislodged from Gaza anyway, because when you look at what the Israelis have done, what they've achieved, it's quite remarkable, isn't it? Because it was Syria. They would go, because Iran borders Iraq, which they had, they've got support in Iraq among Shia militias. Then Iraq borders Syria, which was under the control of Iran, basically. It was like a proxy of Iran. And then that Syria borders Lebanon as well. And all of this was like the Shia crescent, as they called it. So they had like a land bridge to Israel. But all that's gone now. The Israelis have like wiped out Hezbollah. Obviously, Syria, there was a coup in Syria by a Sunni extremist who despise Iran more than Israel.
And the U.S. has lifted sanctions on Syria, so they're developing a relationship there again. And it sounds like I think Netanyahu is going to Washington right away here. He's going to meet with Trump. And then the Iranian officials are going right after that.
Well, it's good that they're willing to chat, because it's such a shame. It's such a catastrophe what's happened to Iran. And I think probably most Iranians would be of that mind as well. I think that they're in effect now being oppressed by a minority of these religious lunatics.
It is one of the most, what's the word I want to find there? Storied cultures in the world, Iran. Very smart people there as well. Like very.
Certainly Persia, yeah. I mean, it's made up of more than just the Persian people, but the Persian people have a pretty glorious history for sure.
I think a lot of people look at Iran and they think of it just as a, from the news and that it would be a terrorist country and that, but it's very rich in history, very rich.
Yeah, and a lot of people make the very sad mistake of assuming that they're Arabs. They are very, very different from Arabs. They speak an Indo-European language, just like we do, just like English is an Indo-European language. There's a certain kinship between us that doesn't really exist with Arabs. And they have a massive hostility to Arabs, as a matter of fact, because Iran or Persia was conquered by the Arabs many centuries ago.
I know a few Iranians, and they're very good people. And I know one of the more famous ones in the United States is Patrick Bet-David, who's, made himself like a multi-millionaire doing his work, and he also served as a Marine in the U.S. forces there, or U.S.
Yeah, my godfather is Persian, is Iranian, and
there you go.
I can testify they are extremely interesting people by and large, and very, generous and funny, and it is a really fascinating culture. But what a shame. We're talking about it in a sad way, aren't we? Because it's been kind of hijacked by freaks who they're like a tick, aren't they? They can't pull the tick out.
If Trump can pull this off and gets a ceasefire and he gets these people to join the Abraham Accords and all that, what a place with all that money that's in. I mean, if you look at what they've done in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Dubai, and all that stuff, imagine if that could spread into Iran, because it's a very rich country in resources as well. and then Egypt not doing so well, and maybe they'll get some of that. But I mean, lots of history in those countries there, and it would be a great time to have a little bit of peace. And they should have like a TV show for Trump again and call it the Trump Dynasty or something, because lots of twists and turns and that. He seems to do so much stuff like in a day. Like, I don't know how he does everything he does in a day. I guess must be jacked up on Diet Cokes or something like that and McDonald's burgers. But
well, apparently, according to JD Vance, he's got a big red button in the Oval Office.
That's right.
And he presses it, and it's the Diet Coke button.
He said it was a nuclear button, and then Diet Coke walked in. It's like, oh no, that's just for Diet Coke. Jacked up on Diet Coke. But Trump just announced a deal with Vietnam. This is a big deal for a lot of the clothing manufacturers that had gone to Vietnam because it was cheaper than China. And so he announced a deal with Vietnam at 20% tariff on imports to the U.S., and it opened up the market to the Americans. And so that deal is 20% tariff on Southeast Asian country imports to the U.S., and it also would give the U.S. tariff-free access to the Vietnam's markets. And Vietnam also agreed that goods would be hit with a 40% tariff rate if they originate in another country, because lots of countries are trying to do that have higher tariffs. They go around and they kind of like ship them in the back door and then out that door. This process known as
China's been doing that.
Transshipping. There you go.
Yeah. Well, Vietnam has become the sort of golden goose now, as due to various problems in China. Everybody wants to go to Vietnam. Yeah. So it has been used as transshipment, I think they call it, don't they? And it's been used for that purpose.
A Canadian company, Lululemon, it's got hit by tariffs. The stock is down quite a bit because of tariffs. It might be good news for them then, because the stock has fallen off quite a bit on tariff worries. So, and they get a lot of their goods from Vietnam. And let's move on to BC News. Health Minister Josie Osborne was here in town, was in Kelowna here, and then she met with some officials at KGH there, and she did give our Josh Duncan 5 minutes of her time as well. I think he actually got 7 minutes out of it, but we didn't get a lot out of that interview, though. And she's not sticking around for the town hall meeting tonight that the 3 Kelowna MLAs have put together here tonight. That's going on at the Coast Capri Hotel.
The thing is, it's kind of just like, it's accepted now, isn't it? It's very sad, but it's accepted that you're just not going to get anything out of an interview with a politician. It's just, everybody seems to allow that. Or, they don't complain too much, but it's sad, isn't it? They should really be open and free to speak, but
there was a photo op.
And they just play a game.
There was a photo up there because she met with our mayor, Tom Dias, there at Kelowna City Hall there. And, again, that letter, we asked about the letter as well. We asked the minister what knowledge she had of that letter that was sent in 2022 and what was done about that letter. And we got really no answer for that. And so she did go to meet with the mayor, because that was the main complaint of that letter, lack of communication between IH and the municipalities here in the Okanagan.
She also said here, I don't know if you read this line, but talking about the CEO of Interior Health, who's been at the center of all this, said her decision to accelerate her retirement was hers and hers alone. Don't know if that's true, but yeah. It's things like that, you hear that, you ask an honest question, which is what Josh did. He said, Josh's question was, did the provincial government have any role in getting rid of the CEO? And that was the answer that he got. It's kind of like, when you get an answer like that, it's like, what's the point? What's the point of even asking the question?
I guess the bigger question is, what do they do from going forward from here? Because obviously the past was a mess, an absolute mess, and lack of communication. And obviously that led to the resignation of many pediatricians and the closure of the pediatric ward here in one of the main hospitals in British Columbia here in the interior. And it's a regional hospital. And again, that open house goes tonight. And Gavin Dew, Christina Lowen, and Macklin McCall will be there with this town hall, along with, I imagine, some doctors and healthcare professionals as well that have been vocal on this topic about communication. It all stems from communication, most of it, right? And that's Gavin Dew had a response there to Josie Osborne's. With 224 days as health minister and a month into a crisis, Josie Osborne visits KGH. MLAs and media learned she was there. It was from rumors. And does she have a critical does who she have been critical of meeting with her? No. So there you go.
Not cool.
No. And then Eleanor Sturko put this out there. She's not happy with the Order of Cannabis for Dr. Bonnie Henry and her push to legalize drugs like fentanyl, crack cocaine, and meth. Dr. Bonnie Henry downplayed and denied the harms caused by her safe supply that has been significantly diverted, especially to youth, fueling addiction, fentanyl use, and deaths, and putting money into the hands of organized crime. And she says Dr. Henry does not deserve the Order of Canada.
And Eleanor Sturko, and you can read this on Kelowna Now, also told me in an interview a while ago, 6 months ago or something like that, maybe more than that, that she thought that Bonnie Henry had misbehaved by allowing certain very controversial language in a major report about, I believe, the drug crisis, where she used language like uninvited settler to refer to non-First Nations people, that kind of thing. She's not mentioning that here, I guess, because she's trying to focus on, she's got, you know, she is very focused, I think,
on the drug
as you'd
crisis,
expect from an ex-cop.
Yeah.
But she's, you know, she criticized her on another count there. So it's not just about, safe supply or whatever. It's more complicated than that.
And this one is not going away, and this is Harman Bangu again. And NDP just handed out that shipbuilding contracts to a company linked to China's military-industrial complex. And while the U.S. sanctions the CSSSC for its ties to Chinese Navy, David Eby and his crew are busy shipping our tax dollars overseas to fund a regime that doesn't share our values. There's the values again. What's happened to BC jobs and Canadian security? And that I believe that this could turn out to be one of the biggest scandals for the BC NDP, and they got a lot to choose from. They got a lot of pots on the stove that are boiling over. And again, Josie Osborne's visit here just for the day and allowing us 5 minutes after repeated requests for interviews. And we repeatedly requested interviews with Susan Brown as well.
Yep, now she's gone.
Well, she's gone. Well, she's still there, apparently.
Yeah, well, I'm sure she's there in spirit.
Well, let's take a look at markets. What's going on in the stock market today? Stock market's at record highs, right? Had, a little bit off today. Not much going on, really. Just mildly off. Major indexes off, nothing really. NASDAQ is up. The Dow's off by like 50 points or whatever. But again, stock market's at record levels. And gold, again, just kind of looking for direction here. That Gaza, if they get that ceasefire there, that should help gold as well. Gold's holding on to that $3,300 mark, though. And then Bitcoin, lots of talk in the Bitcoin markets there about more people jumping into the Bitcoin train. And there it is, banging on the door of 110 right now, 109,541 USD. There you go. And this is Tom Lee. He's another analyst there, and he's saying that Ethereum could be the next Bitcoin. We're going to play a small clip here. Can go back to that other one there and play that clip from Tom Lee. There you go. We're going to play this.
And this is some big news. It's kind of complicated, but probably suffice to say that you all are doing basically what MicroStrategy did with Ether. You're going to make Ether, the purchases that you buy through this, you're going to set this whole thing up like this. You want to explain a little bit?
Yeah, glad to. I'm still a big fan of Bitcoin because I think it is, digital gold. But what we've seen in the last, really in 2025 is the financial services industry and crypto are converging. And it really started with stablecoins, which is the ChatGPT of crypto, right? Because it's viral adoption by consumers, businesses, banks, and now even Visa. Underneath the stablecoin industry is Ethereum. That is really like the backbone and architecture of stablecoins. So it's important to create a project that essentially accumulates Ethereum to essentially protect and have some influence on the network. So that's why we're creating this treasury vehicle to buy Ethereum. The more Ethereum that's accumulated, the more secure the network is. And I think it's also sort of the architecture that future banks will have. When Goldman issues a stablecoin and JP Morgan doing it on Ethereum, as a layer one blockchain, they're going to want to secure it by staking Ethereum. So we're trying to get in front of that by creating a treasury vehicle.
And just so I understand, it's safer if you own more of it. Explain why that would be.
Well, Ethereum is a proof of stake network.
Right.
So unlike Bitcoin, which is proof of work and miners do all the work for you, and that's why you have decentralized trust, in Ethereum it's important for these entities to essentially validate transactions. So by becoming a staking entity.
There you go. Ethereum basically, like if you pull up a 5-year chart, and we'll show it right now, but it's at about 2562, right? 2564 right now. It's been fairly flat, I guess, over the past 4 years. So Ethereum, you know, Bitcoin
probably
is
the
definitely
number 2, isn't it, after Bitcoin in terms of that people
it's
know about.
It is the one that actually transacts a lot easier. People can figure out how to transact Ethereum. I've used Ethereum a couple times. Bitcoin is tougher to do actual transactions, but there are some apps out there that you can do some stuff with. And then this one here, the breaking, and this is a 1.5 trillion euros German bank, a giant Sparkassen, to launch Bitcoin buying for all of its customers. So that's, again, like I said, there's lots of wind in the sails of Bitcoin. Bitcoin looking like right now that it's going to break out past its, we've been talking about it for a while, break past its old high there. And then we're going to move on to our tech section. And then in our AI section there, Claude ran its own store and failed miserably. Claude is one of the LLMs, right? And it was giving stuff away, selling stuff cheaper than it's supposed to. So yeah, I wouldn't trust AIs to actually run your store yet. So going to give everything away.
That's funny.
And Stellantis says it may close factories due to EU emission fines. And Stellantis may be forced to close some of its factories due to the risk of substantial fines imposed by the European Union for non-compliance and CO2 targets. And this is where that EV mandate in Canada is going to cause some grief for these legacy automakers. And here's Ford. They sold about 16,000 EVs in the U.S. in Q2 2025. That's a 31% decline year over year. And then the Mustang Mach-E was down, Lightning was down, as was the E-Transit down, right? So in Rivian is, lots of people talk about Rivian all the time. They announced some numbers today too, and they're such a small player. They produced about just close to 6,000 vehicles in this last quarter, right, in Illinois, and it delivered about 10,000. So because they had some inventory sitting there, but they're saying they're going to do about 40 to 46,000 units this year. And then Tesla announced its delivery numbers. And they were slow because they retooled some factories and they've had some pressures because of Elon's political stuff too. But you know, if you look at the numbers compared to Ford and Rivian, Tesla delivered close to almost 400,000 units and made about 410,000 units. So look at the difference there. And that's why I say Canada tariffs Tesla. They're the only real EV maker in the world. And the product is that good. And yet we have tariffs here. And then here's Jaguar. Do you remember that ad? I think we covered it a while ago. And they were going to switch to all electric. And they did that really kind of weird ad with all these.
The pink one on it.
Something, yeah. And then sales have plummeted 97% in Europe. I guess people weren't buying in.
They sold something like, it was like ridiculous, like 17 cars or something, wasn't it? It was like a tiny number.
Yeah. So that's you know, like, again, it looks like the Bud Light phenomenon all over again. So I guess they didn't learn the lesson
there are
from Bud Light.
consequences now, aren't there?
What's that?
There are real consequences. I think it's also because Jaguar is it's like one of those great old luxury brands, isn't it? There's so much heritage to that brand, and they just completely like swept all that aside, and they just like plonked this, whatever it is, this thing, and people were just like, no, it doesn't even look like a Jaguar. Like, why would I buy a Jaguar that looks like that?
And the commercial, again, I think a lot of people are just like, I don't want any of that. Palantir, we've talked about it a few times. Palantir looks like a rocket ship. And they've just done a thing. They did an alliance, Palantir, to launch warp speed for warships to digitally transform the U.S. maritime industrial base. Maybe Canada can watch this piece here, and maybe we can get our shipbuilding business back on track here. Because Palantir's software there, Warp Speed, it's a manufacturing operating system. Warp Speed for warships is designed to accelerate shipbuilding modernization and readiness by digitally taking the first steps to better connect the network of shipbuilders, suppliers, and critical partners responsible for building and sustaining the Navy's fleet. So there you go. again, stop ignoring the technology that's been developed in the United States, thinking we can build our own. Because we played that clip, I think it was on Monday, or on Friday, where Evan Solomon said that they're going to build 2 cars a year for the next 3 years, and Canada's going to have its own EV industry. 6 cars. 6.
I seem to recall he was even giggling himself when he said that. I don't think he really believes that, does he?
And then if you want to look at the future of farming, check this thing out. They're going to play a small clip here. That's good. So that is picking broccoli. And we had to level up the AI Summit here in September this past year. And we had in there mushroom picking that was developed in Salmon Arm, actually. So it's vision-based software that picks mushrooms. And here is a obviously vision-based robot there picking broccoli, picking the heads of broccoli. And then, you know, like,
I mean,
they
it's
say
so
that,
amazing. This is like, I think this is some of the best stuff happening anywhere on the planet. This kind of automated agriculture.
Well, lots of people say that they don't want. I mean, lots of people won't work in agriculture, and that's why they say that's the reason for this immigration and then the abuse of people that come here for immigrants here. We've heard that story over and over again. And then these types of tools here will help that. I was at the CES in Las Vegas this year, and I've seen a lot of stuff too, picking strawberries, and actually more than just picking strawberries, they were actually in there pruning the plants prior to the fruiting as well. So these things just go down the fields, and they just work just like that thing is walking down the field, finding the broccoli, picking it, and putting it on the conveyor belt, and then, yeah, there you go. The mushroom picking.
The suggestion to me, anyway, is that this could make food
cheaper,
so inexpensive. Yeah, I mean, cheaper. As long as you have to get over that hill of capital expenditure, don't you? Because it's very expensive now. But at some point, when we're further along the line, it should be a lot cheaper.
Well, the Salmon Arm company that developed the mushroom picking one said that the investment in their equipment is paid back in 2 years in efficiency and higher quality picking, because it won't pick the mushroom till it's at optimum time, and it's vision-based learning, so it learns every time it picks a mushroom, it learns a little bit more from that mushroom and how to pick the next one. And I use vision-based software every day because I have a Tesla, and I use full self-drive. And it learns as it drives as well. So there you go. And then here's Amazon. It deployed, get ready for this, it deployed its 1 millionth robot across operations. I'm going to play a small clip here of Amazon's robot army. Oh yeah, it's good, Nick G. Cut that out.
The change is happening, isn't it? It's happening before our eyes.
Yeah. And then here's part of the problem.
It should be good. That should be good. But then there's also worries, isn't there? That everyone's going to be jobless.
And here's part of the worry right here. Microsoft laying off another 9,000 employees in its latest round of cuts. There's the worry.
Yeah. Well, because, I mean, a lot of what I'm reading now is it's not so much that you don't need employees anymore. It's more just you need fewer because you can get ones that know what they're doing to direct the AI rather than direct staff. That's basically what I seem to be hearing now, and that makes perfect sense to me. And then in our health section, and we talked about this a while ago, but here's Fox News doing this story just in case you missed it. The connection between cannabis and severe mental illness, including psychotic disorder, schizophrenia, comes as a no surprise to me. And this is, again, this is put out by the Canadian government too as well, that use of marijuana not as safe as proposed. We did that story about a month ago, wasn't it? That story was put out by the Canadian government saying that the more you use it, the worse it gets. And the evidence is really starting to pile on now for this, yeah.
And, you know, we did that story a long time ago when the first guy to say it, in my mind, is Sir Elton John, knighted Sir Elton John, and a connoisseur of the drugs as well, said that Canada's biggest mistake was legalizing marijuana.
Yep, the people have been saying this for ages, but like the data, the hard data, the science has recently started to it's almost relentless now. It's really starting to pile up, and I don't know. The stupid thing is, the government has legalized it. You can't really criminalize it now. It's much harder to criminalize something that's permitted rather than the other way around. So it's kind of like they've let the toothpaste out of the tube on that one.
Yep. And then in our Are You Serious section, and this guy we follow here too, he always puts out some good funny stuff. I put him in the meme section here today. Breaking, Mark Carney's Liberals passed that tax cut. Remember Francois Philippe Champagne told us that, he's working hard for Canadians. That's why they didn't need no time for a budget. And they needed that holiday because they're going to deliver for Canadians. They're going to deliver that tax cut. And this is he's saying that you're going to get that 76 cents tomorrow. Personally, I'm heading to the store to buy that stick of gum. Returning it because inflation will cost me 25. Well, a big discrepancy from what the PBO says and what the Carney Liberals say and what you're going to get in that tax cut.
And who are you going to trust, eh?
What's that?
Who are you going to trust?
Do you trust the government or do you trust the Liberal Party that is the government? I don't know. They contradict each other. It's odd.
Yeah.
No?
Or are you going to trust the guy whose job it is to be neutral, even if maybe he's accused of not being sometimes? Or are you going to trust the guy who wants you to vote for him and elect him and give him power?
I'm going with the PBO with a grain of salt with that one too, though. And then this one here is this is after the rescission of the DST. Uh-oh, little Mark, you made a messy. Get those elbows up. This is kind of a creepy AI photo, though, right?
Yeah, it's so creepy. I think it's like what they've done to Mark Carney. It's like the uncanny valley, uncanny Carney.
Reminds me of Chucky, the movie Chucky. And then this one here is Norman Spector. Let's be fair, Carney is still doing better than the Ayatollah against Trump. Remember when the Ayatollah claimed victory after the B-2 bombers dropped their ordinances down the hole?
Yeah, I guess it's strictly speaking, that is true, but yeah, not something to brag about.
And then Andrew Lawton put this out. Remember, the Mark Carney's new government is on track to spend even more than Justin Trudeau. And this is the former Prime Minister. They spend $51,000 per month on booze. At least they kept the booze business in business, right?
That's just remarkable. How much booze were they?
And this is the big winner of this year's Golden Pig Award. So we're doing the Fool of the Day, and here they already got a Golden Pig Award. Justin would have won that all the time. He probably could be in the Hall of Fame for that one as well. But he is Hall of Famer for the Fool of the Day, and it's our time to pick today's Fool of the Day.
Who's it going to be? I mean, it's nothing personal, I would say this time, but it has to be Mark Carney because he's the only one that's done anything foolish in this,
Yeah.
He's the main character that's done a foolish thing in our show today, so it has to be him.
I think he did three foolish things: the rescission of the DST, and then trying to pretend that it was, and then, then saying that it was part of the negotiations, and then the CTV could probably get honors there for that mini win,
Yeah.
And then
the reason I'm giving it to Carney was more the freedom is under attack.
Yeah, that one. Yeah,
while
I was just
failing to acknowledge that the primary attacker is probably the Liberal Party itself.
His speech there definitely is like absolutely ridiculous there. But on the flip side, and we're going to talk about the flip side, I did see a clip of him flipping pancakes, and he was way better than Justin Trudeau at flipping pancakes.
There's no doubt that he's better than Justin Trudeau in literally every single way. I mean, except maybe surfing. But he is a vastly superior operator, isn't he? And even down to the pancakes.
I mean, he is like what you call a master flipper compared to Justin Trudeau, who luckily didn't burn his hands when he was at one of those things.
Yeah, I don't know. Probably helps that Carney, for the first 20 or so years of his life, he was, or maybe more, 25 or something like that, he was pretty ordinary dude, sort of high achiever, I suppose. Went to Harvard and everything, but he's still pretty sort of ordinary, I guess. Whereas Trudeau has been the Dauphin his entire life, hasn't he? So maybe never had to flip a pancake.
They are a bit of an awkward couple, though, the two of them. They remind me a little bit of King Charles and Camilla.
Oh, you mean, what's her name? Diana. Yeah.
Yeah. They always make sure, the media always make sure that they always call it Diana Fox Carney, too.
Get the Fox in there. Fox is quite a cool name, though, so I guess that I'll allow that.
Megan Fox might have been a better choice, but hey. That's our humor.
Maybe if Mark Carney was in the market now, that's what he would have chosen.
She's slipped a few gears as well, though, I think, Megan Fox as well. Anyway, that's our show for today. It's July 2nd, Wednesday, the Fool of the Day, our own Prime Minister and his speech. That speech was something. Go watch it if you haven't seen it yet, because that'll make most people puzzled. And anyway, we're back tomorrow.
Yeah, it's only 2 minutes.
It's only 2 minutes. And then what is tomorrow is Thursday, and then Friday is July 4th in the United States. And it looks like that big, beautiful bill, I think they tried to rename it to the Senate. I don't know if that got done or not, but it passed the Senate, and it's back to the House now. And Elon Musk and Trump have renewed their fight. They're throwing barbs at each other again. So
Trump is literally making things up as well. He's literally fabricating things about Elon Musk, saying that he hated that he was getting rid of the EV mandate or something like that.
yeah,
Elon Musk, I think you can say in years now, Elon Musk has been against that.
Yeah, he said that. He said as long as it's fair. And then I don't know. They're just. It's like all in the surreal TV series called Trump Dynasty. And the only thing he hasn't brought back yet is you're fired. He hasn't fired anybody yet, has he? Anybody from his cabinet yet?
Yeah, no, he hasn't. No. Who's going to be first?
I think Carney needs to fire somebody. Like somebody needs to take, like, you know, I would understand the DST cave if somebody got fired for it. If he said, you know, like, you're the one that gave us the advice to stick to it, like Francois Philippe Champagne, there you go, you're done.
I don't know why he was given a job in the first place. So, I mean, there's that to wonder about.
Somebody needs to get fired. There needs to be some accountability with the Liberals for sure, because this is ridiculous. You said you had a chat with...
Don't hold your breath.
You said you had a chat with Jenna Sudds. You want to talk about here on Bill C-18, or do you want to save that for a story? Or
well, I told her I wouldn't write the story about it because I wanted an honest conversation about it, and you know, I just sort of said I'm not on the job. Don't be scared. But she just said what we all know anyway, which is that there haven't been very many caucus meetings, and the ones that I have been at were all about C5. They were all about economics things, and so it hasn't even been discussed, is what she said. But she did acknowledge that lots and lots of people, lots of MPs in the Liberal Party dislike it. And I got the feeling that maybe she's one of them, though she didn't say that. But yeah, it's exactly what I've experienced. All my other conversations with Pascal Santonge, with the Tory MPs, everybody that knows about C18, it was the same conversation, which is just kind of like, nobody really knows why it's there, but it sort of is, and it's not going anywhere. And it's like, it's such a mess. It's such a messy piece of legislation.
And it really doesn't help that the Liberals are now spending millions of dollars with Meta when they, you know, like Justin Trudeau said, you know, basically that they're going to boycott it and they would never back down. And so did Pascal St. Onge say that they would never back down. But,
yeah,
you know.
But I mean, we are one of the few outlets that are pointing out this hypocrisy, and obviously we can't make all that much noise by ourselves because the big boys don't want to talk about it. So we're kind of, they just get away with it, as is often the case, which is also the case with this surrendering to Donald Trump. They just kind of get away with it because the media doesn't cover it. And it's Marshall McLuhan would be fascinated. He would feel very vindicated, I think, watching this all happen.
All right, that's our show for today. We do thank you for watching Now Media. We'd like you to share, like, all those things that you do on YouTube. Hit the button, hit everything that you want to do. And we'll see you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.